Welcome back, everyone, to the Deep Dive. This time, we're taking a deep dive into the world of leadership.
Ooh, leadership.
But with a bit of a twist,
Okay.
we're going to be looking at leadership through the lens of neuroscience.
I like it.
You know, you sent in this super interesting research article for us to unpack,
Yeah.
and the title is
Hit me with it.
Antagonistic Neural Networks Underlying Differentiated Leadership Roles.
Okay, so that's a mouthful.
It is a mouthful, right? Sounds a little intimidating at first,
A little bit, yeah.
but I have a feeling it's going to be a fascinating deep dive.
Yeah, I think so too.
What do you think?
Definitely, the article really digs into this whole classic idea of task-focused versus relationship-focused
Right.
leadership.
Right. That's so interesting.
But what makes it really cool is it basically suggests that our brains might actually be wired for this kind of split.
So you're telling me there's like a scientific reason
Potentially,
why some people are just amazing at getting things done while others, really excel at building those relationships and connecting with people?
Yeah, it really does seem that way.
Wow.
It all boils down to these two major networks we have in our brains.
Okay.
The task positive network, or TPN for short,
DDPN. Got it.
and then the default mode network, or DMN.
DMN. Okay.
Get this. They have what we call an antagonistic relationship.
Antagonistic.
Antagonistic, yeah.
So like they're fighting.
Kind of, yeah.
They're like battling it out in our brains.
That's actually a great way to put it, yeah.
for control.
Yeah.
Wow.
So the TPN, this is all about focus. It's about problem solving.
Okay.
And that really laser sharp analytical thinking that you need to just get stuff done.
Like buckling down.
Yeah, buckle down. Exactly.
Getting things done.
It's the network that really kicks in when you're tackling like a complex project, or if you're analyzing data,
right.
or just like trying to power through that never-ending to-do list.
I feel that.
Right. We all have it.
So if I'm in the zone, like really cranking away on a spreadsheet or, I'm writing code, that's my TPN, just like firing on all cylinders.
That's it. That's TPN in action.
Wow.
Now the DMN,
Okay, DMN different?
that's a totally different beast.
Okay.
It's active when, you're daydreaming,
Uh-huh.
reflecting, thinking about other people's feelings,
Correct.
or if you're just letting your mind wander a little bit.
Letting it wander?
It's where empathy comes from.
Yeah.
Social connection, that big picture creative thinking.
So TPN is like doing, and then DMN is more
Yeah.
being and connecting?
Exactly.
So like when I'm brainstorming with my team,
Uh-huh.
trying to really understand a client's perspective,
Yep.
or even just having a meaningful conversation with a friend, that's more my DMN.
That's DMN in action.
Okay, I'm starting to get it.
But here's where it gets really, really interesting.
Okay.
The research shows that when one of these networks is active, the other one is suppressed.
Wait, hold on. You're saying I can't be analytical and empathetic at the same time?
It's not quite that simple, but yeah.
Oh, man. So much for being like a well-rounded leader, right? You got to choose.
It's not about being good at everything all at once. It's more about recognizing our brains are wired for this switching back and forth.
Switching back and forth. Okay.
The study, they actually used fMRI scans
Oh, wow.
to show people's brains literally like flipping between these networks as they did different types of tasks.
Literally like flipping a switch.
Yeah, like flipping a switch, exactly.
Wow.
Like imagine you're in an fMRI machine
Okay.
and they give you all these complex puzzles to solve.
Mm-hmm.
Your TPN's going to light up.
Makes sense.
Then they show you images of people expressing all these different emotions.
Oh,
And boom, the DMN takes over.
Oh, wow. That's so cool.
Right.
So it's literally like our brains are just toggling
Yeah.
between these two modes constantly,
Yeah.
depending on what we're doing, who we're interacting with.
That's right. And it makes you think, right?
Yeah, it really does.
How has this whole like task versus relationship thing played out throughout history in terms of leadership?
Well, that's a great question. And the research actually touches on that a bit.
Does it?
Yeah. It traces how this duality has been reflected in a lot of different leadership theories over time.
Interesting.
If you think about the early 20th century,
Yeah.
there was this huge emphasis on task-focused scientific management.
Uh-huh.
Like it was all about efficiency and output.
Yeah.
It's almost like people were seen as these cogs in a machine, right?
Very much a DPN-driven era, it seems like.
Right.
Although sometimes, I feel like people's well-being might have taken a little bit of a back seat to just getting those results.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Then as we moved into like the mid-20th century,
Yeah.
we started to see a shift, right?
Yeah, what happened?
Theories like the Ohio State leadership studies,
Right.
they started to really emphasize the importance of building those relationships.
Interesting.
They actually found that the leaders who were high in both consideration for people
Mhm.
and initiating structure, which is all about task focus,
Right.
they were actually the most effective.
So a little bit of both.
Right. A little bit of both.
That's fascinating.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
It's like those researchers were already picking up on this whole brain duality thing.
Yeah, they were ahead of their time,
Right.
in a way.
Way before neuroscience could really back it up.
Totally.
The article even mentions Bale's work
Yeah.
from way back in 1958,
Wow.
where he argued that groups that are really effective
Huh?
actually need two leaders,
Oh, interesting.
one for tasks
Oh.
and one for the emotional needs.
For the people, yeah.
Right. Isn't that amazing how this duality just keeps
It does.
popping up?
It keeps surfacing.
Yeah, but now with all this research, it's like we're starting to see that maybe it's not just,
Right.
a philosophical debate.
It's like hardwired.
It could be hardwired into our brains,
Yeah, that's a really good point.
which I think has
Yeah,
some
right.
pretty major implications for how we think about leadership today, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely, yeah. It really
Yeah.
does.
Yeah.
Big implications.
Right.
I think it really challenges this idea that we should all strive to be good at everything.
Right.
Like, be the perfect blend of task-oriented
Right.
and relationship-oriented all the time.
Yeah, like a superhero leader
Right,
who
exactly.
can just do it all.
Yeah. Maybe it's not about being great at both of those things simultaneously,
Mm-hmm.
but more about recognizing when to lean into one mode or the other.
So instead of trying to be, that superhero leader,
Yeah.
it's more about being aware of our own strengths, maybe weaknesses, and knowing when to switch gear.
Exactly. And that switching ability.
Yeah.
That's something we can actually develop with practice.
Oh, interesting.
The research actually uses this term neural efficiency
Okay.
to describe this. Like, the better you get at something,
Yeah.
the less brain power it actually takes,
Okay.
which then makes those transitions a lot smoother.
So it's kind of like, I don't know, learning a new language.
Yeah.
Right. At first, you have to translate every word in your head. Mm-hmm.
And it's just so slow and mentally exhausting.
Right.
But then as you become more fluent,
Yeah.
you can think and speak more naturally.
Yeah.
Don't even realize you're switching between languages.
That's a perfect analogy.
Yeah.
And just like with language, the more we practice switching between TPN and DMN,
Yeah.
the smoother and more effortless it becomes.
So are some people just naturally better at switching than others, or
That's a good question.
it's something we could all improve with practice?
It's probably a little bit of both.
Okay.
Some people might just have a natural predisposition
Yeah, makes sense.
for certain leadership styles,
Sure.
but I think the research really suggests that anyone can develop this skill.
Okay, good to know.
And one of the key factors here is timing,
Timing.
knowing when to shift between those modes.
Okay, that makes sense.
Like there's a time and a place for everything, right?
Exactly.
Like if
Yeah.
you tried to launch into a brainstorming session,
When everyone's heads are down and they're just focused on their individual tasks,
right?
it's probably not going to go so
Yeah,
well.
you're like harshing their vibe.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. You're disrupting their TPN flow
Yes,
and trying to force them into DMN mode
when they're not ready.
when they're just not ready. Yeah.
And then on the flip side, if you try to, have a heart-to-heart
Oh, yeah.
with someone, when they are laser focused on solving some complex problem,
Right.
you're probably going to get
A blank stare.
a blank stare. Yeah.
Exactly. It's about reading the room,
Reading the room.
understanding the context,
Mhm.
recognizing those subtle cues that kind of tell you when a shift is needed.
So it's almost like, I don't know, like a leadership DJ.
Ooh, I like that.
Right. Knowing when to drop the beat for that focused work
Yeah.
and when to cue up the chill vibes
Right.
for collaboration and connection.
Love it. And the research actually suggests that people who are really skilled at reading those emotional cues
Yeah.
and kind of understanding the needs of other people,
Uh-huh.
they actually tend to be better at timing those shifts.
That makes sense because
Yeah.
if you're more attuned to,
Yeah.
the emotional state of yourself and the people around you,
Right.
you're going to be more sensitive to when,
Yeah.
maybe a shift in leadership style is needed.
Exactly. And that brings us to another interesting question.
Okay, hit me.
Can we actually train ourselves to become better
Ooh, that's a good question.
at this kind of neural dance between
Ah,
TPN and DMN?
the neural dance, I like that.
Can we improve our leadership brain switching abilities?
So that's a question I'm sure our listeners are really eager to hear the answer to.
Yeah.
So is there hope for those of us who might not be, natural born hutchers?
I think there's definitely hope. I think so. Yeah, there's definitely hope for everybody out there.
Oh, okay, good.
The article basically lays out, it suggests that effective leaders really need 3 key abilities.
All right, I'm ready. Let's hear it.
First, they need faster switching between the TPN and the DMN.
Okay, so faster switching, that makes sense.
Second, high competence in both task-oriented and relationship-oriented skills.
So you're going to be good at both.
You got to be good at both, yeah.
Okay.
And then third, the ability to actually recognize when each skill set is needed.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So it's not enough to just be good at both, like the doing and the connecting.
Right.
You also have to be like this master code switcher,
Yes.
recognizing the subtle cues that tell you when to shift gears.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that mastery takes practice. It really does.
Right.
The article talks about this in terms of tipping points.
Tipping point.
Yeah, both neural and emotional.
Okay.
Think about it like a seesaw.
Okay.
Like even a small shift in weight can tip the balance from, let's say, task focus to relationship mode.
I like that. Tipping points. That's a good analogy.
Yeah, so how do we actually get better at recognizing those tipping points?
Right. Because it sounds like that's the key
It is, yeah.
to really unlocking our leadership potential here.
One way is to really focus on developing just a higher level of competence
Okay.
in both of those, the task-oriented and the relationship-oriented skills.
In both.
Remember we were talking about neural efficiency earlier?
Yeah.
Well, if something just takes less brain power, it frees up more mental space for you to switch between those modes.
Okay, that makes sense. So if I'm really struggling to keep up with my tasks, it's going to drain all my TPN energy.
It will, yeah.
And that leaves very little room for those DMN moments
Right.
of connection and empathy.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
But if you've kind of mastered those tasks,
Mm-hmm.
they become almost automatic.
Yeah.
And that frees up your bandwidth for other things.
So it's like building a mental reserve.
Yes,
The
exactly.
more skilled you are in both those domains, the
Yeah.
less taxing it is to kind of move between them.
Precisely. And you know what? This applies to any skill, not just leadership-specific ones.
Right.
The better you are at managing your time, communicating clearly, or resolving conflicts, the more flexibility you'll have to navigate those task and relationship demands.
Right, it's all connected.
It's all connected.
This research is really giving me a whole new perspective on leadership development. It's not just about, learning these new skills.
Mhm.
It's about training our brains to become more adaptable and responsive.
I love that.
What a fascinating concept.
It really is. And for all of you listening out there, we really encourage you to kind of continue exploring this for yourselves.
Yes.
Pay attention to those moments where you feel pulled in different directions. Notice how your energy shifts, how your focus changes,
Yeah.
and how those shifts impact your interactions with other people.
Great advice, because as we've been talking about in this deep dive,
Yeah.
great leadership isn't about fitting into a neat little box, right?
No.
Labeled task-oriented or relationship-oriented. It's about embracing the complexity of our brains.
I like that.
Learning to dance between those two modes, recognizing the tipping points,
Yeah.
and just choosing the right leadership style for the moment.
Beautifully put. It's about being more self-aware
Yes.
and
Yeah.
using that knowledge to just become more skillful and effective leaders.
Well said. This has been such an insightful exploration.
I agree.
And I'm sure everyone listening is walking away with a lot to ponder.
Lots to think about.
So keep diving deep, everyone, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.